Good evening, everyone. It's episode 6 of QB Room. I'm Jake Santos. He's Jason Forcier. In tonight's show, Jason and I will break down and predict each conference championship and winner from each Power 5 conference by season's end, including a couple of Group of 5 programs that may crash the party. Plus, we bring back the pick 6, and tonight's topic will be the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma versus Texas. We'll end our podcast with our parlays under pressure for what should be a fun weekend of college football. Episode 6 of QB Room starts right now.
QB Room is sponsored by Auto Blades. Why wait until your visibility is compromised before changing your wiper blades? Built for all weather climates, maximum visibility, and a fast and easy install, Auto Blades makes windshield wiper blade maintenance simple. Visit autoblades.com for your 100-day test drive now.
Yeah, how we doing tonight, man?
We are doing good.
Doing good? Have
Rocking
fun
and
with the weekend?
We had a good weekend. Some good college football on.
It was.
Waiting for this baby to come out so I get more time on the couch in college football. I can't wait.
There you go. Let's start with the weekend. I think the best game of the weekend was the Ole Miss versus LSU. It was an amazing game, 55-49. Ole Miss pulls out with 38 seconds left. The quarterbacks in that game played terrific. Jackson Dart was 26 of 39, 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a rushing TD. And then Jaden Daniels, had himself, if they would have won that game at the end, if that kid actually catches that ball in that last play, that's like a Heisman moment right there to put himself in that race. He finished with 27 of 36, 414 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air, add another 99 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground. I didn't realize how big of a rivalry, or I guess they call it a rivalry down there in Oxford, but it was pretty cool to see. What were your thoughts of that game? It was definitely one of the best ones over the weekend.
Yeah, Jaden played his best game, as you shared. Jackson Dart played his best game of the year, bounced back from that Bama game. Both quarterbacks lit up the scoreboard. It's funny, you talk about that Heisman moment. The old saying is like anyone that's won the Heisman's had a good defense, at least from a quarterback position, because I think Jaden would have had that W, and we'd be talking about him a little bit more. I thought it was just good play calling all around. Clearly, 2 offensive-minded coaches that have some stuff to figure out on the defensive side of the ball, but you can't knock a good ball game like that.
Yeah, it was so back and forth. I think I stopped watching for a little bit just because I thought Ole Miss had it handled for a little while, and then all of a sudden you turn it back on. LSU's up by like 7 or 8, and then at the end of the game you're like, wait a second, there's under a minute, and LSU's trying to come back and win. The other thing that I thought was so cool was the fans rushing the field. It just kind of brought me back. We have this moment that we've kind of shared both on our journeys of playing college football at the highest level. It's so great to be able to see these kids do it. You've seen like on TikTok and Instagram now, like the security guards trying to knock people over and keep them from going. One dude just threw a straight elbow to a girl, this poor girl. The kid jumping off the goalpost. We didn't experience anything like that at Hawaii, but we had 2 back-to-back games in 2007 where our fans rushed the field in back-to-back home games. We were playing Boise State. We needed to win to be able to win the WAC at that time. It was 50,000, packed our stadium. And once we won that game, my mom, my dad, my brother, like everybody just rushed the field. I still have photos from that moment. We knew as WAC champions that we had a really good chance to get into a BCS bowl berth now. The only thing we had to do was take care of Washington and Jake Locker. They were coming out to Hawaii in the last game of the year. And we were down 21-0 in that game against Washington and Jake Locker. And we found a way to come back. Colt Brennan, Devon Best. It's pretty much the greatest game in Hawaii football history. Maybe some other BYU games in Hawaii might be up there as well, to the best of my knowledge. But anything that I've been a part of, and again, our fans, 50,000, rushed the field. It was just pandemonium, and we knew we were going. We knew we were punching our ticket to the BCF.
That's cool. This is like a half rush the field. It was more the team rushing the field because the big house, they just wouldn't allow it. But it was 2006 against your Nittany Lions. They came in ranked. We were not having a good year. But Chad Henne was the quarterback. We had Mario Manningham. Obviously, those guys had good NFL careers. But it came down to the last play. I think they were top 10, and we were unranked. It was 4th and 4, probably like from our 15 or 20. Last play of the game, opposite student section. But we basically, I think they ran quarters, so some type of bracket coverage over the middle. We basically ran like a basic with a skinny post over the top. Hit the seam. Manningham scores, runs like Forrest Gump around the entire stadium. I dropped my clipboard, whatever the hell I was doing. Oh shit! Everyone just runs in. It was the craziest moment, and then we all jump into the student section. The party just went on at the night. But it was it was so much energy. It was so fun to be a part of.
Yeah, and the other thing too is we know that Oxford throws a good party. Back in 2015, Hottie Toddy, yours truly, you and I, we went down to go see. I don't even know who the hell they played that night.
A&M.
Oh, A&M. It was A&M.
Those guys were standing the entire time. The 13th men.
What was the quarterback was Kelly, right? Chad Kelly for Ole Miss.
Chad Kelly was it? Yeah.
Chad Kelly for Ole Miss. We had ourselves a great time out there. We didn't realize the bars closed a little bit early on Saturday nights because there's church on Sunday morning, but it was such an awesome time. The people in Oxford showed us, such great hospitality, letting us into their tents. At the time, I was acting faking as if I was, filming for network television. I had a Fox Sports t-shirt on. I had this jerry rig with a camera, and Jason's my production assistant. I'm like, hey man, you can't drink right now because if you're drinking, it's not legitimate. Nobody's going to think we're actually working for TV. Like you got to wait. You got to wait till we're done. We'll change into our outfits and everything and we'll go. And it was so much fun. That was one of my favorite trips ever. So, props to you for coming out and doing that with me. That was so much fun.
We got to run it back. We even got a little Manning royalty. Remember sitting outside of the bar? And we were hands looking out like, was that Manning?
Is that what? Cooper and his dad? Cooper. And yeah. It's the square out there. The people in Oxford and at Ole Miss, they know how to throw a party. So it is amazing. If you have any opportunities, you college football fans, to go out and see how college football is supposed to be done, get to the Grove.
See it at night. They got to run it, go claim their spot. They got to do it.
You got to do it is right. All right, so we're going to move on in our opening drive here. And like I said, we're going to be predicting all of our Power 5 conference champions. We're going to go through each Power 5 conference, and then we'll even give you guys a group of 5 contender. The way I did this, Jason, was we look at the teams that are in contention, okay? And then we are going to go ahead and go through their remaining schedule of games that are of note. And then we kind of can make our decisions based off of that. So we're going to start in the ACC. Right now, there's 5 ranked teams in the mix in the ACC. They're Miami, Louisville, Florida State, Duke, and North Carolina. We're going to start with Miami here. They go ahead and their toughest games still left on their schedule are at North Carolina in 2 weeks. Week 10, they have at Florida State. Mm-hmm. Week 11, they'll play Louisville. Now, Louisville
game this week.
Yeah, so they might not be ranked after this, but that's not a conference game. So it's not going to hurt them for Louisville if they lose that. The others would be North Carolina. They're going to have now only Miami week 7 and then week 10 versus Duke. So looking at North Carolina, I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like, okay, they're undefeated in their conference right now, and they only have to play. They host Miami and they host Duke. So that might be a team to look out for there. And then when you look at Duke, they still have to go at Florida State, at Louisville, and at North Carolina. So between those 3 teams, I know Florida State's the highest ranked, and we'll get to them here. But I think Florida State might be a little bit of the favorite. But between those 3 teams, Miami, North Carolina, and Duke, I like North Carolina to represent the ACC in the championship game. What about you? Out of those three, Miami, North Carolina, Duke.
2 days ago, I was a Dookie, but
Yeah.
after a high ankle sprain and just a heartbreak, I like Miami. I think Miami with Cristobal, they're playing good football right now. They got that quarterback. They might lose one, I think, against Florida State, but I think they run the table the rest of the way and they sneak in still.
Yeah, so Miami looks really, really good. And just kind of looking at North Carolina here, I think Drake he needs to get better as the season goes because his numbers are not there. They play Syracuse. I'm going to chalk that up as a win. They host them. They play Miami. They host them. Virginia. These next three games, I have them winning all three. They go to Georgia Tech. I'll have them that. They host Campbell for some stupid reason because the ACC and the SEC likes to do that. And the only one that I think is going to be hard that they may lose and they can kind of afford to lose at this point if they keep winning is at Clemson. And Clemson should get better. And Clemson's probably going to get ranked as we move forward here throughout the rest of the conference schedule down the line. But if they can lose only one conference game and it be at Clemson at the end of the year, I still think they'll be able to represent the ACC in the conference championship game.
Right.
So who I think they're going to play is Florida State. They're going to be hosting Syracuse and Duke. They go at Wake, which Wake's not the same team as before. They go to at Pitt. Pitt's not the same team as before. And then they host Miami. Their only loss, I think, might come at the very end, like you said, in the beginning of the season, which is a non-conference, and it might be at Florida. Now, they might be ranked in the top four before that game, and then all of a sudden they lose to at Florida, and it costs them. But then they're going to have a chance, I think, to redeem themselves in the conference championship game. My championship game is going to be North Carolina, and then maybe they can go ahead and say, yeah, we still deserve to be in the playoff. Who do you have Miami playing?
I like to think about they're playing Week 10 at FSU. I think it's going to be a close game. I like both these teams coming out. And I like a rematch, essentially,
Right.
in the title game. But I think Florida State gets them in the regular season. Miami comes back. Cristobal figures out a way to slow down Jordan Travis. It's storybook, right?
It is.
Takes in Miami. So I like Miami. I like Cristobal coming through just based on what I see on the schedule. And just looking at this, it's just wild that we're not even talking about Clemson.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised that Clemson runs the table and just causes havoc with all these rankings. Or like in terms of the ACC, who actually ends up being there at the end.
Yeah.
They're a good team.
Yeah, and remember, the old ACC, where they used to have actually Coastal and Atlantic, right as the divisions.
Top two.
Now it's just the top two. So just to kind of recap the ACC for you guys here, we have, for me, North Carolina, I have them going 6-2 in conference, and Florida State going 8-0. And Jason has Miami 7-1 versus Florida State 8-0, with his winner being the Canes, mine being the Noles. It doesn't mean I think the Noles are going to make the playoff, because I do think they're going to trip up somewhere, maybe at Florida, and Florida probably won't be ranked by then. So that loss might be too much to overcome.
We're going to get a wide left one game, a wide right the next game.
Yeah, there you go.
Bring the rivalry back.
Yeah. All right, let's move on here to the Big 12. So there was only two teams ranked in the conference right now, and that's Texas and Oklahoma. So there are other teams that are in the mix, though. Kansas is in the mix. West Virginia is in the mix. Who else we got here? BYU, and then, of course, K-State, West Virginia right now. That win for Penn State. I mean, right now they're 4-1. It's kind of looking pretty good right now. If you're Penn State, you need West Virginia to keep winning. And then Texas and Oklahoma. So for OU, let's kind of go through their remaining schedules here. I kind of took just the big two for the remaining schedules. But OU has Texas here, this Red River rivalry. And then they'll play at Kansas and at BYU in Week 11. That one at BYU, I think we both know, or we're West Coast guys, it's not easy to play at BYU, especially at night. So I can kind of see that being a trip up there. But when you look at Texas, they don't have any hard games on the road anymore. they host Oklahoma, well, neutral site against Oklahoma, and then week 9 is against K-State.
They're at TCU late in the year. I mean,
yeah, okay. At TCU late in the year, I'll give you that. I went with Kansas to represent the Big 12. I went with Kansas going 7-2. I think it was unfair this past week at Texas. We're a little bitter because we had them in our parlays under pressure, of course. But I mean, I can't imagine Jalen Daniels doesn't make a difference in that game. But if you look at Kansas's schedule going forward, they're at home against UCF. They go to Oklahoma State. Those are 2 wins. They host Oklahoma. Let's say they lose. So now they have 2 losses in the conference. And the remaining schedule is at Iowa State, at home against Texas Tech, at home against Kansas State, and at Cincinnati. So those 2 losses can essentially get them in if Oklahoma somehow goes down. Because I have Kansas playing Texas. So if I look at Oklahoma's schedule, I have Oklahoma losing to Texas this weekend. And I'm hoping maybe West Virginia can pull something. And I want to see Kansas versus Texas and kind of like the fair game, because Jalen Daniels makes a difference in that game. And then that would be really cool if Kansas sees himself in a Big 12 championship against Texas. What about you?
Going old school. I just Oklahoma looks like the Oklahoma of old. I know they had a 1 year last year. I don't see them winning this week. I think Sark is going to figure out how to find a way to win. It'll be close. But Oklahoma will bounce back. I do know they have some tough games. I don't think they're going to put up the points like they've been going through all year. They might even lose one, but I also feel like Kansas might slip up, especially if whatever happens with Daniels in the future. There's another slip up there. So I like them. I like Texas now. I also like a rematch again with OU Texas in the Big 12 game, with Texas prevailing in a much tighter contest.
Right now, we both have Texas as our winners. You just have OU versus Texas, and I have Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, against Texas in the championship game. Quick question. Do you remember the Big 12 championship game being played in Kansas City?
No, it's always that. No. Is it this year at Arrowhead?
No. So the Big 12, the Dr. Pepper Big 12
it's always
conference championship game.
No.
Well, Jerry's World hasn't been around for all that long, but it was never, like when it was in Arlington before, or the first Jerry's World, it wasn't played there. It was outside, and it was like cold in Kansas City in, early December, late November, whenever it is that they play those games. And I loved it. I remember seeing those and thinking, I hated the fact that the Big Ten was in Indianapolis. I thought it would be really cool for the Big Ten to play their championship game at like Soldier Field in Chicago. Just wind everywhere, snowing,
0-0.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody throwing the ball. I get why they do this stuff indoors. I totally get it. But yeah, okay. So that means next we're moving on to the Big Ten. This is a fun one for me. I don't even know if I've still made up my mind. I don't think I have. Right now, there's only 3 ranked teams, and they're all in the same division. Shame on you, Big Ten.
Right.
Can't wait till that.
In the ACC and get out of this, because
they need to.
The way for how many years now?
I don't know. Remember when they did Leaders and Legends as their divisions?
Fired there.
I'm like, what the hell? It is so dumb. And then, in their Big Ten, there was the number 11 in there because there was 11 schools actually in the Big Ten at the time. It was so bad. Anyways, but right now there's only 3 ranked teams. They're all in the same division: Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. Now there's undefeated teams like Maryland, but they play Ohio State this weekend, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
they do. So we'll find out.
So Maryland's 5-0. Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State's only 4-0. And then you have this whole shit in the West. I mean, it's Wisconsin, Iowa. That's the only ones. Technically Minnesota and Purdue are still eligible to get this done. And with that division, they'll probably beat each other up. So who knows? You might see Purdue and Minnesota. But I have Iowa. I really do.
Okay.
I have Iowa playing somebody, and I haven't made up my mind yet. So I'm going to go last on the East. But and let me tell you why Iowa does. Because Iowa, right? So they only had to play this year Penn State from the East. That's like tough. That's it. They lost. They got their ass handed to 31-0. They go and play Michigan State right after. They handle them 26-16. They have to go to Wisconsin, okay? But I don't really think we see anything in Wisconsin other than it's a hard place to go and play. They host Minnesota. They host Northwestern. They have 4 home games in a row, and then they end at Nebraska. You look at Wisconsin's schedule here, and I think Wisconsin has to go at least play Ohio State. So, I mean, I can see them losing to Iowa. I can see them definitely losing to Ohio State. And, they go to at Minnesota at the end of the year for the Paul Bunyan Axe. So, I have Iowa. I have Iowa mainly because I need Iowa because Penn State needs to look good with their schedule. So it's good if Iowa's ranked at the end of the season.
I think it's a race between Wisconsin and Iowa in that division.
Okay.
Minnesota's not good. They didn't look good against North Carolina. They're not like they used to be. Purdue's, figuring stuff out. The reason why I like Wisconsin over Iowa, and they play in 2 weeks, is Iowa's starting quarterback, Cade McNamara. Just Cade.
Yeah, just Cade. Just go with Cade.
I think he broke his leg, something. He got carted off the field. And then Iowa has had a ton of injuries. So I like Wisconsin. They haven't had the injury bug. It's at home. I think it's a big game for them. Wisconsin will lose to Ohio State, but they'll have the head-to-head tiebreaker.
Over Iowa, yeah.
So I think Wisconsin's going to find themselves as like a consolation prize in the Big Ten championship game. But who they play, yes, it's biased. But I do think Michigan, I think their schedule stacks up very well until essentially they go to Penn State and play that game. We talked about it. We heard that it's not going to be a night game. It's going to be a day game. We're going to find out if Maryland's going to be good or not. Not sure. And then the game. It's the game. So like that's a toss up. And so I can't say it's hard or not hard. It's just going to be a game that Michigan's going to expect to win, and their defense is playing really well. Now, it'd be interesting to see what happens between Ohio State and Penn State that game. But I'll let you kind of figure that out. So go for it.
So Ohio State and Penn State's defense has really been built to try and defend speed, which is what Ohio State has had over them. Okay. Over the years, Penn State's actually been able to beat Michigan at home. Like during Saquon and Trace McSorley's time there was a good run where they were able to they beat Ohio State one year at home in a block field goal, scoop and score. They beat Michigan at home. They just couldn't do it on the road. They had leads. You can ask James Franklin all about those leads, but they couldn't actually finish. They built this defense for Penn State around Ohio State to get after the quarterback and to be able to keep up with speed. They don't have like run stuffing, nose guards and D linemen. They have edge rushers, and they'll play all 3 or 4 of them all at the exact same time. Their linebackers are fast. Their secondary is really good. Kalen King over there on the right side of the field, like he's a shutdown corner. But I don't like the fact that they're playing Michigan at 12 p.m. at home and later in the season as opposed to it being a night game. Like Michigan's a better team than Ohio State, in my opinion. It's either between Penn State or Michigan for me. I can't, man. I'm going to go with Penn State. There's just no way I can't be on this show and sit here, wear a freaking hat that says we are, and then just go ahead and say, yeah, it's going to be Michigan in there. Look, Penn State defense is for real. If you look at Penn State's statistics defensively, it's really impressive what they've been able to do. They slept walk against Northwestern in that first half. Everybody does.
You got Penn State, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin. Who's your winner?
Oh, if it's that, then I'm going Penn State. But it literally says right there in the notes, winner, not Iowa.
All right. So it's clearly your Penn State or Michigan here on this podcast. We'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. All right, the fun one, the Pac-12, soon to be the Pac-2 with relegation in the future years to come. That will be a whole nother podcast because I think it's awesome. And I don't think it'll happen, but I think it's awesome that they're trying. Pac-12, 6 ranked teams. Not too long ago, it was 8. Now it's down to 6. The teams in the mix, realistically, we think SC, Washington, Oregon State, Wazoo, and Cam Ward, Oregon, and I kind of threw Utah in there, but that was a really poor showing the other night at Oregon State. But Oregon State's for real, like you said, and it's just really impressive now to see what Washington State did against Oregon State when you see Oregon State played against Utah and pretty much dominated that game. Mm-hmm. Let's go through the schedules here. SC, they only have to go on the road to at Oregon. That's really, I think, the bigger test there. So they host UCLA, they host Washington, they go on the road to Oregon, they host Utah. Notre Dame's not a conference game. Yeah, SC has a pretty easy road, I think, maybe, since a lot of their games are at home. You go through Washington. So Washington hosts Oregon. They go to SC. They go to Oregon State. And then they host Wazoo. That one against Oregon State, that kind of scares me.
At Oregon State, that's tough.
That's tough. And then you look at Oregon. I mean, I think nothing gets harder. I mean, at Washington, it's good. It's really good. It's riveting stuff. At Washington versus Wazoo, at Utah, even if Utah's like not what we think they are, going to Utah is tough. And then you still have to play, yes, you host them, but you still have to play SC and Oregon State. So after seeing that, I took Oregon out. Like, there's no shot in mine that Oregon's going to make it. Wazoo has an easy road. In my opinion, Wazoo has an easy road. They have to go to Oregon and they have to go to Washington, but that's really it.
They got UCLA next week at UCLA, but
yeah.
I think they have the path of least resistance.
I mean, at home against Arizona, at home against Stanford, at Cal, Colorado, I'm sure they're going to get better, but their schedule's really hard, so they might be down in the dumps. It's that last one at Washington for me that kind of was the one that's a deciding factor. And then Oregon State at CU, hosting Washington at Oregon, and Utah, who I don't really think has much of a chance. They still got to go to Washington and SC, and they'll still host Oregon. So what I went with, it comes down to that last game for me. Washington State versus Washington. Mm-hmm. I took Washington, and I have them playing SC. SC going 8-1, Washington going 9-0, with my winner being the Huskies.
I like it. We talked about path of least resistance with Wazoo. I'll just cut to the chase. I think it's a flyer right now, right? When you look at the conference top to bottom. Yeah. But I think I can go, if they go 1-1 and win the rest, they're in. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm pretty confident. I think every single Pac-12 team will have at least one loss by the end of the year.
That's a good take. I wouldn't be surprised
if North and South is 2 losses. I mean, because if you look at USC, who they have to play still, and obviously Oregon they could all beat up each other, and then it could be some fun calculations on tie breaks and all that stuff, which will make such a blast to figure out. But
it will.
Washington State, USC, with the winner USC going to the college football playoff.
But okay. So, well, hang on, because you just said that they might have one loss, and some people have 2 losses. You think whoever wins going? SC is not even in, according to their rankings, SC is not even in their top 7 right now, right? So I think they're outside of their top 7. They have Washington, that's it.
Yeah, this goes back to your whole argument. Again, whole nother schedule, right? If the media continues to give them love on these are good wins, and the Pac-12 is doing what the SEC normally does and beat each other up, and Alabama is allowed to lose a game or 2, it's different. But anyways, if the teams they view are top and they lose a game or 2, do they let them slide a little bit and give them the benefit of the doubt? I think this year is that year.
Okay. I hope it's that year. I mean, they got to have a Pac-12 team in there in the last year that all these quarterbacks, there's going to be 3 of them going to the Heisman race probably. Like, that's just like, how do you not have one of those teams in there? And I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be Washington. You think it's going to be SC. The one thing I will say this about SC, they make it look very simple. They make it look very, very easy. Sure, they let Colorado come back in the second half. But when they want to score, they'll score at the snap of their fingers. And it's because of Caleb Williams, because of Lincoln Riley in that offense, Brennan Rice at receiver. Like it's a fun offense to watch. I want it to be Washington versus SC. I do. Don't know if it's going to happen. We can keep our fingers crossed for that.
We'll see how good USC's defense is, right? It's not the Utah game. It's the Washington game. They got it at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
very good point.
Circled. So, I mean, it's fun. This is I can't remember the last time the Pac-12 this loaded.
It's been really good. All right, couple more here. We got SEC. We got the SEC. 7 ranked teams in the mix: Georgia, Bama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Bluegrass, Mizzou, Ole Miss, and LSU. A&M is not ranked, but technically they are undefeated in their SEC West. So I'll kind of cut to the chase in this one. I saw Kentucky play Florida this weekend, and I said, that's a really, really good football team. So Florida's not that great, but you shouldn't do what you just did to Florida and not be considered one of the top teams in your conference. Kentucky has at Georgia, which I believe is this week.
Yep, it is.
And then realistically, that's kind of it for them. They don't have to go anywhere else that's really hard. If we look at this, they host Missouri. No, sorry. They host Missouri and they host Bama. Now, Bama's going to be tough, right? But if they can sneak out one of these wins, whether it's at Georgia, because I don't really think Georgia's all that made out to what they're supposed to be, number one in the country. But if they can go to Georgia, compete, I think they win at home against Tennessee. I think they win at home against Missouri because they're at home at Mississippi State. Even if they lose to Georgia, they're at home against Bama. And, who knows? It's just one of those things. Louisville at the end of the season is not a conference game, and they just end at South Carolina. It doesn't seem that hard, and, it's kind of realistic that they can pull this off to get in their SEC championship game. I have them there. I have them in the SEC championship game, and I have them taking on Bama from the West. They're both going to be 7-1 in conference. I have Alabama moving on, but I'm going to go with Kentucky playing Bama.
All right, you're going to like mine.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, Mark Stoops is doing a phenomenal job up there.
If there's ever a year, right? If there's ever a year to do it, it has to be this one.
If he does it this year, it's no longer a basketball school in Calipari's eyes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a big week. We'll figure out who was right. I'm going to take Georgia. I mean, they still got some questions on offense. The fact your best players at tight end, 200 yards receiving, that's got to change. But until you can get past their defense, they're the best team on the East. Right? I think they're going to get through. I do think their schedule's tough. I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss, just with their offense, makes that a tight game. And then at Tennessee, I'm thinking you just don't know what you're going to get with Tennessee. It's at Tennessee. It's not a night game. Maybe it will be. So I wouldn't be surprised they come out with a loss. And then I'm going to die on my sword here. I think Brian Kelly has a couple of four-leaf clover that he brought with him from South Bend, and he's going to get some luck. And their schedule matches up nicely. They had a tough one.
It does.
And this is why, I think, because LSU can put up points. And they've lost 2 games to arguably 2 of the best top 10 offenses in college football.
Okay.
They got to figure out, and they had, that was a barn burner, but they lost regardless. If they can continue to put up points and their defense make some adjustments, I like them. I like them next week at Mizzou. I don't think they're going to win big, but I like them, and I like them at Bama. I know they are. They beat them last year, right? LSU did. You never know. That could be a toss-up too, but I do like them, and I like them just kind of righting the ship and making the SEC a special story, making it curious, and beating Georgia in the final.
Well, again, if there was ever a year a 2-loss team in the SEC maybe doesn't get to the playoff but gets to the SEC championship game, right, and actually does something, like, hey, you're taking your shot with LSU, and I'm taking my shot with Bluegrass Kentucky, man. Like,
well, it's just so Exactly. It's so funny because, like, you think about last year. Last year was probably the strongest argument for, like, we got to have 6 teams in it, or 8 teams.
Yeah,
And I can see this year playing out like there's 8 or 10 teams that deserve to be in.
100%. So I think this is the only one out of our Power Five that we have two completely different teams. Is that
Big
correct?
10. Big 10.
Big Ten, we have two completely different teams.
Yeah, because you have
Yes,
you're gonna
I'm
take
Penn State, Iowa. You have Michigan, Wisconsin. Okay, very good. Just real quickly, the group of 5 teams that can kind of crash this thing and make it, really interesting and fun. Fresno right now, Fresno State, the Bulldogs are 5-0, and Air Force is 5-0. Now, Air Force isn't ranked like Fresno State is. However, they don't play each other in the regular season. They are only going to play each other in the Mountain West title game if they both make it, which it looks like they both will. If you've watched Air Force, they just handled San Diego State very easily. San Diego State, known for their defense, Air Force just put up 42 on them. Fresno State, Mikey Keene, they're a fun team to watch. They look like a legitimate top 25 team. And realistically, the way it works is the highest group of 5 ranked team gets an automatic bid to a New Year's Six. Fresno State, keep this in mind, they've beaten Arizona State and Purdue. So that's a Pac-12 and a Big Ten team. Air Force doesn't have that on their schedule. A couple other teams is Liberty, 5-0. Toledo out of the MAC, 4-1. Tulane and Memphis, they play each other this week. They're both at 4-1, so the winner of that might see themselves getting ranked later on in the season if they can run the table. And a fun one for me, James Madison. It was the coolest FCS stadium that I've ever seen. They're now Division I FBS team. And also Texas State. Texas State is 4-1. They beat Baylor. James Madison beat Virginia. So there's some teams that can do this, and it's just to make it fun. Fresno State has the early lead because they're ranked already. But don't be surprised if James Madison and Texas State and Liberty see themselves going up there as well.
Yeah, I think you would, if I had to rank it, it's Fresno State to lose. But if Tulane wins out, again, they didn't lost to Ole Miss without the starting quarterback, and we saw what they did last year in the Cotton Bowl. It was the Cotton Bowl against USC. They beat USC, whatever.
USC, yeah.
I could see them kind of coming up there. But Fresno State's, I like them too.
The other thing real quick, just kind of the Sun Belt, it's 2 teams that I mentioned, James Madison, the Dukes, and Texas State. So Texas State's quarterback is TJ Finley, the old LSU quarterback, big dude. They don't play each other in the regular season. So they will only play each other in the championship game. So that could be something fun for us to watch. For you guys that are diehard college football fans like we are, and conference championship weeks, you're like Texas State versus James Madison. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one, baby. All right, that's going to move on to our studs of the week here. I'm going to go with a true freshman out of Arkansas State by the name of Jalen Rayner. Nobody's ever heard of him. In fact, he didn't even play in the first 2 regular season games for some reason. They probably should have. But they took on UMass, and the kid went 20 of 25 for 383 yards, 6 total touchdowns versus UMass. Again, I kind of like to do this where I, pick somebody that nobody's really ever thinking of, try to give some love to some of those smaller school guys, or even just guys that, might be flying under the radar. But for me, that's what I'm going with. Jalen Rayner, keep an eye out for him. He's a true freshman over at Arkansas State, also in the Fun Belt. Again, 20 of 25, 383 yards, 6 touchdowns versus UMass.
I like it. I want to highlight another up-and-coming quarterback. I know we hear about the top 10 all the time, but there's a redshirt junior down in Missouri making a name for himself. His name's Brady Cook. Hasn't played elite competition yet. That will happen this week. But last week against Vandy, played 80% of his passes for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I looked on the year. He hasn't thrown a pick yet. He's thrown 11 touchdowns and about 1,500 yards through the air so far in 4 or 5 games. So he's playing pretty well. He's got a big matchup, but I think he's going to be raising some eyebrows, and it's good to see Missouri have a good little quarterback in place since I think they haven't had one since Drew Lock.
Very good, very good. All they need to do now is just move back to the Big 12. because they ain't winning shit in the SEC.
Have them and A&M.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Parlays under pressure. Let me just go over last week real quick. It's our PUP Week 6 edition. But last week I went 2-2. Jason's creeping up in the standings here. He went 3-1, had himself a good week. Jason and I both took Kansas to cover 16.5. That didn't happen, and we all know why. Their starting quarterback didn't even play.
I was like, this is not fair. We need to redo.
Yeah. I was so pissed because remember, I had already lost the Utah over Oregon State. Right. So that morning on Saturday is Kansas, Texas, and I'm like, this kid's not even playing? I'm going to start 0-2. This is horrible. I had Utah to win at Oregon State. That didn't fall through for me. I did have the over of 44, Kentucky versus Florida. That was stuck, by the way, at 44 points with 8.5 left to go in the third quarter. They didn't get to 47 until 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I was shitting my pants in that one. Air Force covered 10.5 versus San Diego State. We kind of already covered that. They handled them pretty easily. You, Jason, you took Colorado minus 21.5. Didn't look good at the beginning.
It didn't look good. Shout out to a special guest, Dominic Sanfilippo, called me an idiot for taking Colorado and the points. I think that worked out well for me, though.
Dom with the shout out. First and last name. First and last name, just in case anybody doesn't know. Look him up on Instagram. We gave him the first and last name.
Oh,
that's awesome.
All right. All but loved. Clemson took care of business. They won by a few touchdowns up at Syracuse, and then Van Wilder. He's having a renaissance year down at Brighton, and they took care of East Carolina and covered.
Very good. All right, week 6. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going Notre Dame minus 6.5. It is at Louisville, but if you saw Louisville this past week, they barely beat NC State, and we saw what Notre Dame did to NC State earlier in the year. So minus 6.5 is too low for me. I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover 6.5. Liberty minus 19 against Sam Houston. Sam Houston, I believe, is 0-4. Liberty is 4-0. They're at home. I'm going to go ahead and take them to cover, win by 3 touchdowns at least. Here's the big one for me. Kentucky plus 14.5. I get it. I'm starting to sound like a Georgia hater, but I can't see it, man. Like, you go to Auburn and you're down. Auburn's handling you. You came back at the end. Great. You win by a touchdown. I think Kentucky's better than Auburn, so 14.5. Even if you lose by 14, I'm good with it. And then the big one, the Red River rivalry. It is OU versus Texas, the big game this weekend. Usually they're high-scoring games, but usually there's not a lot on the line for OU and Texas over these past few years. They haven't been that great. In fact, OU lost 49-0 last year to Texas. I think Texas is going to win, but I don't think it's going to be over 59.5. It might have moved to 60 before we hopped on the podcast, but I'm going to take the under in that score. So that's my pup for week 6. What you got?
I like them. I am taking Wazoo plus 3.5 down at the Rose Bowl against UCLA.
Okay.
Rutgers plus 14 at Wisconsin.
I like that one. That was one of the ones that I thought, but you got 2 underdogs already.
I like. I think the shootout continues with LSU up at Mizzou. I like the over at 63.5. I think it's going to be like 35-21. Does that math even add up? Yeah, no. 56. I like the under. I'm taking my money. Jesus, I had some cow math right there.
Under?
I changed my mind. Taking the under. And then I will take Maryland in the points, 19.5 against Ohio State.
Maryland plus. You're going underdogs in a lot of these, huh? Plus 19.5. All right, we're going to end this show here with the Red River rivalry. You ever been there before? Down at the big old Texas State Fair or no?
No, I think that's something we gotta plan the next couple of years.
Oh, I've been there. But I'll go again. It is amazing. It is awesome. I went in 2018. I saw Baker Mayfield and Sam Ellinger. Baker Mayfield came back. They won, I think, 29-27. It was, I mean, I knew about the state fair. I knew what was supposed to be going on, but it is larger than life, man. And it is so cool to see the field, the stadium at the real Cotton Bowl, the old Cotton Bowl, split 50-50. They call it also, I think, the battle line. And so before we get into our pick six, I just kind of want to throw out some cool numbers here. It started back in 1900, was the very first game, but then they didn't play again until 1929, and they played in every single year, I believe, since. The Longhorns have won 63 times in the rivalry, including winning 49-0 last season. Texas, though, is just 3-7 in the last 10 matchups. OU is 10-3 in the last 13 meetings. The two teams haven't been undefeated since 2011, and the Sooners won 55-17. That was the last time the two teams matched and were undefeated. You'd like this one. It has the second most ranked matchups of any rivalry, behind only the game, Michigan and Ohio State. This one is very interesting. Darrell Royal Stadium, which is what Texas's stadium is called, named after. He's their old football coach. He is an alum of Oklahoma. He was a two-way standout as a Sooner. So I kind of thought that was interesting that they named their stadium, and he was obviously a legendary coach for Texas. But yeah.
Bo Schembechler, same thing. Ohio State.
Same thing, right? So it's crazy how these rivalries work. All right, so we're going to put Jason on the hot seat here. I'm going to give him 6 questions. If he needs help, I will give him a hint. And it is the Red River Rivalry edition of Pick 6. Are you ready?
Let's roll.
Question. That's right. That's right. All right. The question number 1. The rivalry has had 3 names, including the Red River Rivalry. Can you name the other 2? Let me know if you want a hint.
Oh, it's the Red River Shootout. And it'd be the Red River Showdown.
There you go. There's the other 2. You got all 3. Questions number 2 and 3. In 2021, that was the last time Oklahoma won. Can you name the 2 quarterbacks for Oklahoma in that game?
2021. So that's Lincoln Riley. Oh, so Caleb Williams.
He didn't start the game, by the way. Who started?
Oh, because he got benched. Spencer Rattler.
He got benched 2 years in a row. Spencer Rattler, now at South Carolina. He got benched 2 years in a row. And then in 2021, he was benched for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was born in the Red River Rivalry. I believe he had the Texas down on his fingernails. Yeah. Hilarious. All right, number 4. In 1998, Ricky Williams, San Diego Patrick Henry, wore number 37 in the rivalry game to honor which legendary running back? You're probably going to need a hint for this one.
Yeah, I need a hint. What do you got?
Okay, here's the hint. The hint is the running back did not even play for the University of Texas, but for another school in the state of Texas. He died that year in 1998, and that is why Ricky Williams wore his legendary number.
Is it the SMU running back?
Ooh, I should probably give you that, but you should probably know his name too.
Eric Dickerson, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Eric Dickerson, no, not Eric Dickerson.
No.
Dickerson wore 29 or 28 at SMU.
But he's SMU, right?
He is SMU. There's a statue of him. They name an award after him. The Doak Walker.
Doak Walker?
Doak Walker.
Doak Campbell, that's Florida State's.
It's all right. Every week we do this. We'll just get you more knowledgeable. Don't worry about it.
Give me a Big Ten or a Pac-12.
I will. We'll get it. It's the Red River Rivalry weekend, man. We got it. All right. Number 5. Come on, you got to get this. Name the safety who strip sacked Chris Sims in the end zone to win in 2001. Hint. Texas had a receiver in that same game with the same name.
2001?
The safety, you know the play, the strip sack. He jumps over the pile. Chris Sims is throwing the quick out. Strip sack, fumble. Right. The linebacker, Lehman, picks it off.
I don't know. I don't know.
Right. Roy Williams.
Roy Williams. So who would
from
have been?
Oklahoma?
Oh,
The safety, the hard-hitting safety.
Oh, and there was a Texas guy, Roy Williams. Okay.
Yeah, and the Texas receiver was Roy Williams. No worries. No worries. Yeah.
I want to know how many Texas fans would get that.
Those guys, trust me, those guys would get that. Roy, come on. All right, here we go. Technically number 6. The winner of the game earns a trophy. There you go. There you go. That's what it was. The gold cowboy hats.
Cowboy hat. Yeah.
Very good, sir.
Go 4 for 2.
We'll take it. 4 of 6.
All right.
4 of 6. All right. That's going to be it for us this weekend. Hopefully we have a very good, safe time this week with the newborn, bud.
Thank you very much. Yeah, big sign. Mama Force is doing well. She's going to be strong, and we're going to get through this.
Awesome.
We'll grow to our family.
Yeah, and that just means more college football for you for a little while. Brush up on that trivia.
Yeah.